Welcome to the second episode of the 777 podcast. Today I'm going to be getting into the subject of death and the death experience. And it doesn't really matter what religion you stick with or what ideology you tend to go with, because death is inevitable. We will all face it one day. And whatever happens after death is kind of like a separate question and separate conversation. So one day we will all die, and I just had this idea and thought that life is an experience, right? You go through life and you experience things, and the experience is life. And when you die, it doesn't matter what you think happens afterwards. When you die, death is an experience. There is an experience to be had when your brain starts to shut down and your consciousness goes wherever it goes. Getting into psychedelics and what some claim to experience ego death. Ego death is your dissolution of your ego, yourself. Not necessarily a physical death, but you go through stages of a psychedelic experience and you cease to exist. Your consciousness literally breaks down into whatever your core soul is. And you know, people who have near-death experiences claim to have similar experiences, and then they come back. So ego death is a very interesting topic, and physical death may not be too different than what the ego death is through the psychedelics. Knowing that we are all going to die is very scary, and a lot of people don't really like to think about it. A lot of people don't like to think about it because it bothers them, but it deserves balance. You know, you shouldn't get asphyxiated on your death, but I also think at the same time it's very important to realize that you're going to die and realize your mortality. And the conclusion to a lot of this is to maximize joyfulness in life. You know, you don't have to stay imprisoned into a job that you hate and making terrible money. So there has to be some kind of experience when you die. You know, just like a psychedelic experience. And if you think that life is a trip or life is a simulation, then when your consciousness goes into the next stage, there has to be something. Because if you just look at the world around you, it's all about patterns. And is there something before nothing? Are you don't have a life, and then you're born in this world, you're alive, and then there's nothing again? Because even if you follow that pattern, eventually it's a big circle. Because if you are nothing, and then you're alive, and then you die, and then you're nothing again, then you would assume that after that you are born again. So it gets into the subject of reincarnation, and I just think that it ties very well with the rest of it. Many religions talk about reincarnation, and I don't know if there are rules or if you get punished for living a certain way in this current life, but it seems logical. And if you look at everything else that's in the world, there are patterns. And I would put my money on it that there's something to be experienced after you die. And even if you don't agree with that, death is an experience. You're laying in a bed and you're dying, and you know your brain is being asphyxiated from oxygen and blood, and you're like a computer, your brain is shutting down. Like, that is an experience. We don't know, anyone alive does not know what it's like to experience that. But people who have died and then come back with these very interesting stories. Like, they had literal out-of-body experiences, and you know, they were clinically dead, and yet they're able to come back with certain information of doctors or whoever saying something, and then when they come back, they're able to recall what was being talked about when they were laying dead on the bed. So there's a lot of very, very weird things going on with death, and I just think that maybe you don't get reincarnated, or maybe you don't go to a place where it's extremely blissful, but there's no doubt in my mind that the dead, the souls who have gone on, do not speak the same language as us. That's why paranormal things seem to happen, but they can't speak the same language as us, so they communicate to us through our dreams, or they communicate through us. I personally have never really had any paranormal things happen to me. Then again, I've always been one of those people that never wanted to open that door, because once you open certain doors, that's it. You can't close it. But there are some weird things that kind of happen, and the older I get, the more open to the possibility that souls is a real thing. And I don't know if souls hang around because of unfinished business, but due to certain circumstances and experiences that I've had, there's some weird stuff that kind of happens, and it makes you wonder, what is this? How coincidental is this? But the subject of death, I think, is very important to think about. You don't want to get too wrapped up in it, because it's a real bummer. It's I don't care what anybody says. I'm scared to die. I'm terrified to die, and not so much of death itself, because in many people's eyes, death is probably a blissful, the end of suffering. It's the build up and slowly dying of age, and suffering, and that's what I'm scared of. That is terrifying to me, and it's really important for you to take care of yourself as far as what you eat, and exercise is gigantic, because you could be 60, 70 years old in relatively good shape and relatively healthy condition, and you'll be better off than if you're 6 years old living on McDonald's and eating sugar your whole entire life, because you're going to quickly develop some serious medical issues. Diabetes is no joke. Diabetes is no joke. You cut off your hands and your feet because it gets so bad, or Alzheimer's, or hypertension, all sorts of crazy medical conditions because you don't take care of yourself. So I think the main moral point that I'd like to establish in this episode is to take care of yourselves and realize that we don't have much time. We don't have much time here, and it's really important to maximize your joyfulness that you experience, because I don't know if there's anything after this. I don't know, but there probably is. There's probably, if you follow the pattern of nature, there's probably something after this. But it seems like the rules of the game is you must drink the waters of forgetfulness before you enter your next life, because maybe I've had 100,000 past lives before, but I don't remember them. I've had children in past lives, I've had friends, but you don't remember it. And something to go off of what another YouTuber, shout out to Dakota Went, and I'd like to expand upon something that he touched on, is maybe this is the afterlife. We were already in the afterlife. And man, that's a trip. That's some heavy thinking, because that insinuates that you have already had a past life and you have died and you're in the next life. Like, it's just this continuous circle over and over again, which kind of terrifies me, because there's a lot of suffering and pain that comes with being alive. But I don't know, maybe if you are a good soul and you try your best and try to constantly be improving, and try to be aware of your flaws and try to be making progress with yourself, maybe you're rewarded with a better life. Maybe you're rewarded with better parents or a better situation, and life just is a little bit less shitty. Something to keep in mind. So thank you for watching this episode of 77 Podcast. Please subscribe if you want to. If you don't, that's cool too. at the very least, maybe make a comment, because I want to engage and see what other people think of this stuff. So thank you very much.